Welcome to A News. I'm Leila Masima. Here are the top stories for today. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he is ready to deploy UK troops in Ukraine. Humanitarian crisis is deepening in Congo as M23 rebels have advanced into Bukavu. Thousands attend a pro-democracy rally in Berlin as federal election nears. UK troops could be sent to Ukraine as a peacekeeping force. That's according to British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. His remarks comes as world leaders prepare for high-stakes talks on ending the conflict.
Nobody wants the conflict to continue.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he is prepared to send UK troops to Ukraine as part of a post-war peacekeeping mission. His comments come as talks aimed at ending the conflict are set to begin this week. Writing in the Daily Telegraph, Starmer said he did not take the decision to put British servicemen and women in harm's way lightly, but stressed that securing a lasting peace was crucial to deterring further aggression from Russian President Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said any real negotiations to end Moscow's war would involve Ukraine and Europe. He described this week's U.S.-Russia talks as a chance to gauge Putin's seriousness about peace. European leaders are also preparing for key discussions in Paris, where Starmer is expected to join German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. French President Emmanuel Macron called the meeting to coordinate support for Ukraine. These developments follow a move by US President Donald Trump, who stunned European allies last week by announcing he had spoken with Putin about launching a peace process without consulting NATO or Ukraine. His Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, later suggested that Kiev and European leaders might not have a seat at the negotiating table.
France is hosting European leaders, including Britain's Prime Minister, for an emergency summit on the war in Ukraine. It's after US officials suggest Europe wouldn't have a role in any talks ending the conflict.
Leaders from Germany, Poland, Italy, as well as NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte, Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa from the European Union are expected to be at an emergency summit in Paris on the topic of the war in Ukraine. Several countries were unhappy that the meeting was only for selected leaders and not a full European Union summit. However, the French presidency says Monday's meeting could lead to talks in other formats. It's after US Vice President J.D. Vance said that democracy was under threat in Europe. Political scientist Daniela Schwarzer told Reuters TV that the Munich Security Conference revealed significant shifts in global power dynamics, with the US being the key uncertainty.
Russia's war on Ukraine is one of those situations that the US has picked to say we will be a key player here to end this war. Now, it doesn't make the situation easier for Ukraine, in my view, because it is very difficult at this moment, first of all, to know exactly where the United States will be going in their positions. And the Trump administration has already put the Ukrainian leadership under big pressure in asking for a deal on raw materials without any clear return.
US President Donald Trump's Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg says that Europe would not be included in Ukraine peace talks. It's after Washington sent out a questionnaire to European capitals about their security contributions. Schwarzer says Europe needs to work together.
The European Union really needs to make sure it is not split apart by the US administration. We have already been able to observe over the past few weeks of the Trump administration that he has closer ties with some and he doesn't meet others. For instance, the Italian Prime Minister or the Hungarian Prime Minister, they have a pretty good relationship and they seem to align on some issues that, for instance, the German and the French government don't align with the US administration on.
The prospect of a rapid settlement with the war in Ukraine has focused minds in Kiev and Europe on the urgent need for security guarantees and also on what role Europe may have to play should the United States remove its support to Ukraine and the continent as a whole.
US President Donald Trump said that he expects to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. Trump told reporters that he is actively working towards peace and believes that both Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky are willing to end the conflict. Trump also mentioned that Zelensky will be involved in peace talks. His remarks come ahead of the planned preliminary talks between the United States and Russia and Saudi Arabia in the coming days. Moscow says it is open to a visit from US President Donald Trump at any time. That's according to the Kremlin spokesperson. Dmitry Peskov says a visit to Russia could be whenever a mutual agreement is reached. He added that Washington could quickly lift personal sanctions on Russian officials. He also praised Wednesday's phone call between Putin and Trump as a strong signal of commitment to resolve problems through dialogue and talk about peace. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived in Saudi Arabia for talks with Russian officials aimed at ending Moscow's nearly 3-year war in Ukraine. It follows a phone call last week between President Trump and Russian President Putin, in which Trump decided officials to begin negotiations to end the conflict. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio will meet Russian officials in Saudi Arabia alongside Trump's national security advisor Mark Waltz and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, according to US lawmaker. Rubio will also meet Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to discuss Trump's plan to resettle Gaza's Palestinian residents and US-led reconstruction efforts. Hamas is willing to hand over control of the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian National Authority, according to Sky News Arabia. The group's only condition is that existing employees either keep their position under the new administration or receive retirement with secured salaries. Sky News Arabia reports that Hamas made this decision under substantial pressure from Egypt. Over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where M23 rebels and witnesses say the group was advanced into Bukavu. However, there is no confirmation from the Congolese government that M23 rebels had a full control of the city.
The M23 rebels say they've taken a second city in eastern Congo. Bukavu residents say they've seen rebels passing through central districts with no sign of opposition. While the situation appears largely calm, verified footage showed smoke rising from the city's central prison, according to Reuters. Officials say the Congolese troops have withdrawn from that area to avoid fighting in densely populated places. Since capturing Goma in late January, the rebels were focused on taking over the key commercial center.
We want the authorities who are now in the city to help us with our security. Here in Bukavu, we have a serious problem with these young children who have already taken up arms. They are shooting in the neighborhoods, preventing people from going to work. We ask the authorities in the city to take these children, not to kill them, but just to take away their weapons so that every citizen can go about their daily activities as usual.
The rebels' rapid advance this year has raised fears of a regional conflict. These concerns are linked to old disputes over power, identity and resources dating back to the 1990s Rwandan genocide. The Democratic Republic of Congo is a leading producer of cobalt and is a significant copper exporter. It faces growing fears of how the conflict might impact its vital mineral exports.
More situation in DRC. The humanitarian crisis in the country is worsening after M23 rebels seized key areas, including Kavumu airport near Bukavu. aid workers warns that access to vital supplies has been severely disrupted.
Humanitarian situation in Congo remains tense after M23 rebels advanced into the second largest city, Bukavu, local media says. They also have taken control of Kavumu Airport, a key hub for humanitarian and military operations, worsening the already dire situation in eastern DRC. The fighting has forced thousands to flee, while hospitals struggle to cope with the influx of wounded. Humanitarian organizations are facing major challenges in delivering aid.
The big hindrance at the moment is the access into Goma. As I mentioned, the airport is not yet open, and therefore it's difficult to bring in stocks. Many organizations lost their stocks to looting and have not been able to replenish.
At Kaishero Hospital in Goma, medical staff are overwhelmed. Supplies are running out, and doctors are working around the clock to treat the injured.
In
just 7 days, we treated 477 injured individuals. Our first challenge was that hospital staff worked continuously, some for up to 72 hours straight, to better serve the wounded. Our second challenge is that our supplies, including medications, have run out.
With over 110,000 displaced and thousands injured, the humanitarian situation remains critical. As regional tensions rise, international organizations are calling for urgent action to restore stability.
The death toll after stampede at New Delhi's railway station has risen at least 20. The incident occurred as passengers rushed for trains for the Mahakumbh festival.
A deadly stampede at New Delhi's main railway station has resulted in the deaths of at least 20 people and left many injured. The tragic incident occurred around 8 p.m. local time on 2 platforms as passengers eagerly awaited trains bound for Prayagraj, the city hosting the Mahakumbh Hindu festival. The death toll includes women and children, according to local media reports. The stampede occurred as passengers rushed to board 2 delayed trains, causing a surge of chaos that led to the fatal crush.
There was a platform change announcement from platform number 12 to 16. The crowd on platform number 12 started rushing towards platform number 16, which was also crowded. This led to overcrowding and people were stuck. People started falling on the stairs and escalator. Then, all the porters ran to control the situation. We managed the crowd and rescued bodies from the rush. Then we helped shift the bodies into ambulances.
We were on our way to Prayagraj to attend the festival. We were at platform number 16 near Ajmeri Gate. We were walking when it suddenly got crowded. We were moving forward amid the crowd. We were going downstairs to platform number 14 when the stampede broke out. The crowd started pushing and people were falling over us. My wife passed away on the spot.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with several federal ministers, expressed condolences and confirmed the incident via posts on social media. However, they refrained from providing specific details about the number of casualties. The stampede follows a similar tragic event in January, when a deadly crush occurred at the Kumbh festival in northern India, where millions had gathered to take part in religious rituals. The incident has raised further concerns about crowd control and safety measures at major public events in India.
A stabbing attack in Villach, Austria left a teenager dead and several others injured. Authorities have arrested a 23-year-old Syrian asylum seeker in connection with the incident.
A stabbing attack in Austria has left a 14-year-old boy dead and 5 others injured. The 23-year-old Syrian asylum seeker responsible for the attack has been arrested. Local police confirmed that the victims, aged between 14 and 36, include 2 who are in serious condition. The assault occurred on the main square near the Drow Bridge, where the attacker began randomly stabbing people with a folding knife. One witness, who saw the attack unfold, acted quickly and rammed the perpetrator with his vehicle. Austrian Interior Minister Gerhard Kahner later described the attack as having Islamist motives with links to ISIS.
Es handelt sich hier um einen islamistischen Anschlag.
This is an Islamist attack with Islamic State links. That is the status of the investigations so far. An Islamist attack with ISIS links by an attacker who, according to the status of the investigations, was obviously radicalized online.
The assault comes just days after a similar incident in Munich, Germany, where an Afghan national drove into a crowd, injuring dozens and causing 2 fatalities. Austrian authorities are continuing to investigate the incident. Police are working to determine the full extent of the aggressor's motivations and connections to radical groups.
Around 30,000 protesters took to the streets of Berlin on Sunday against the popularity of the far-right AfD party. It's ahead of the general elections this Sunday, and it's also after US Vice President J.D. Vance endorsed the party as a political partner over the weekend.
Tens of thousands took to the streets of Berlin on Sunday to protest against the continued support for the far-right Alternative for Germany party. The demonstrations are ahead of the general election this Sunday. Organisers call for action against extremism, racism, anti-Semitism and social injustice, urging a strong defence of democratic values. They're encouraging everyone to vote.
It's 5 minutes to midnight for all of us. Our democracy is under fierce attack, be it from smear campaigns, disinformation, fake news, trolls, or from enemies of democracy within political parties and the media. They do not just want to jeopardize our peaceful liberal coexistence, they want to destroy it.
In a policy dubbed the firewall, parties have formed a consensus not to work with the AfD, which is under surveillance by the German Domestic Intelligence Service.
My motivation is to preserve democracy. The firewall, the principle of non-cooperation with the AfD, must remain in place. We need to set an example against the far right and the political shift happening not just in Germany, but across Europe and the world. This demonstration shows that everyone is welcome, and my goal is to keep the firewall alive.
I find it absolutely worrying that racism and right-wing narratives are becoming the norm. It goes completely against my values, my humanity, and the empathy we should all have. Every person counts, and no person is illegal. That's why I'm here. Why I take to the streets as often as I can. I have a voice. We all have a voice.
The rally comes after US Vice President J.D. Vance's call for the country to reconsider its stance on working with far-right parties after he met with AfD on Saturday. The spokesperson for AfD leader Alice Weidel confirmed the meeting, saying the two met at Vance's hotel for about 30 minutes and discussed the Ukraine war, German domestic policy and freedom of speech. The AfD has gained in the polls and is projected to achieve a record-breaking 20% of the vote. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz defended the German political party's decision to not work with the AfD, pointing out its links to Nazism. The Conservative Christian Democratic Union Party and the Christian Social Union is expected to lead the election.
Heavy rains and dangerous floods struck the southeast United States, with at least 6 fatalities reported in Kentucky. Dozens of highways were flooded and some residents were stranded. The Kentucky governor declared a state of emergency whilst power outages have been reported in several states. More than 128,000 homes and businesses remain without power in Virginia alone. The Mexican army says it seized more than 4 tons of methamphetamines in the violence-ridden state of Sinaloa. Authorities reported that the drugs were seized from laboratories and warehouses. U.S. pressure on Mexico to combat drug trafficking has increased since President Donald Trump took office, with Trump threatening to impose tariffs if the issue was not addressed.
When we arrived, the staff fled. Here we saw a camp for about 15 or 20 people. We can notice that because of the number of cots, the amount of food they have, because people sleep here, they stay overnight and they are producing during the day and night. We secured a little over 4 tons of methamphetamines at the 3 locations you visited. We have put them at the disposal of the prosecutor's office. They are doing the corresponding procedures, analysis and chemical examinations. On the other hand, I want to add that in a lab such as the one behind you, we also secured 1,250 kilograms of methamphetamines.
That's all for now, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to A News for more exclusive updates. We'll be back soon.